Hey guys, this is James.
And this is Denny from TeaDB. And with us today is our good friend Zach.
Howdy.
How's it going, Zach?
I'm great.
Good. What do we got today, James?
So we have another offering from Teavivre, who were nice enough to send us some free samples for us to try and review on the show. And so today we are reviewing one of Zach's favorite type of teas, a ripe Pu'erh.
Yep.
Cool.
Love it.
So it's a hot day. We're going to get energized. This is not typically what I would be drinking today, but you know what? Whatever. It's going to taste great, I bet.
It's for the sake of art.
So how much do we have right here?
So we actually have a whole lot of ripe Pu'erh right here. I think we have somewhere between 8 and 10 grams. It doesn't actually say on the sample pack, but I weighed the other one. So it's a whole lot of tea, and you can see it's very compressed into these kind of like big chunks. So that means that we're going to be getting less flavor until these are kind of broken up and just giving out more of that flavor.
Cool. How many steepings or rinses are you going to do before you start to actually drink this tea based on the...
We will do 2, which is kind of my standard for ripe Pu'erh. I would not be surprised if some like the 3rd or the 4th steeping give out the most flavor out of this tea, just because it is so chunked up, at least this particular sample.
And so if you had a whole bunch of this, or let's say you had a cake, for instance, would you actually go ahead and take big chunks and small chunks and little individual leaves?
That's a really good question. It's largely up to personal preference. Some people prefer to get a lot of flavor out really quickly out of the tea, and so they'll get kind of these smaller chunks. But other people will kind of want to get kind of that bigger burst of flavor later and do larger big chunks. And so I mean, like, and of course it's not just a yes or no thing. You can go kind of in between. You could go 50-50 and that sort of thing. And the ratio that I like is about 70-30 towards big chunks versus small chunks. And I think that about gets kind of the right ratio of flavor over time out.
So the color for this first rinse here, I'd say it's almost like a kind of like a rose, maybe even like a diluted cherry, interestingly. Really beautiful, and actually it's, you know, traditionally when I have ripe Pu'erh, it looks a little bit more red, even black, purple.
Yeah. I would think that this will get darker and darker as we break apart those chunks that we were just talking about.
Yeah, it already.
Yeah. So
even just by pouring it, the viscosity is increased.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as a fan of ripe Pu'erh, Zach, what kind of flavors and stuff should we look for? What kind of stuff do you normally get out of your tea?
I like ripe Pu'erhs because they usually have a lot more body than the other ones, and sometimes, like, when you brew it like nice and dark, like, it almost looks like a coffee. Like, I had somebody come up, they were looking over my shoulder, and they're like, "Oh, what coffee are you drinking?" I'm like, "This isn't coffee, this is a ripe Pu'erh right now."
You want to take a sniff?
Yes.
That's very
Smells delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whew.
When do you traditionally drink Pu'erhs, ripe Pu'erhs?
If I'm not doing my light morning tea, then this is like my pre-lunch tea usually. Just because I like to eat lunch a little bit later, and this kind of it's a fuller tea, so
Definitely.
so
Yeah.
it keeps me going.
Yeah.
Fills my stomach.
Tons of body.
So we are getting kind of this darkish red color out of this, and I wouldn't be surprised to see this tea turn completely black on maybe not the next steeping, but one shortly after that.
Cool.
All right, so let's see how this
drink
tastes. And what year was this from?
2005, actually. So
So a fairly well aged ripe Pu'erh, which is unique. It's harder to get, more expensive, but
Yep.
tasty. All right, let's see how it goes.
Cheers. I'm getting almost some sweet vanilla out of this. It's very smooth, which is a great sign for a ripe Pu'erh, and that's kind of what you want.
Wow. Now that you mentioned that vanilla, completely. It's interesting because I feel like ripe Pu'erh can come in a variety of different qualities, and a good but cheap ripe Pu'erh is going to be really uniform. So it'll sort of start and end in the same way throughout. This is actually pretty interestingly. I actually think it's kind of light, and it's not knocking me over the head.
Especially considering that we're using 10 grams
Yeah.
of leaf right here.
Yeah, it's a ton of leaf, and but it's not too potent. So
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if more of that potency comes out in these later steepings.
Yeah.
And Zach, how would you say this compares with some of the ripe Pu'erhs that you normally drink?
It's good. How does it compare? Yeah, I think it's a little bit lighter than most of the ripe Pu'erhs that I am used to. That might be the way that we're steeping it. I don't have one of the cool.
Yixings.
What are those called?
It's a Yixing pot.
Yixing pot. Yeah, I don't have the clay pot. Oh, now it's getting dark.
Wow.
Yeah.
And just so you guys, just in case you to spell it out, James is steeping this for virtually no time.
Yep.
It's largely a product of the retaining heat from the Yixing pot, as well as the fact that there's a ton of leaf.
Yep. My method of brewing Pu'erh is toss a whole lot of leaves in your Yixing clay teapot and brew it for no time.
And so far, so good. This is really interesting. So normally when I drink Pu'erh, I tend to get a thicker viscosity. I find that at least that first steeping was fairly thin, not in a bad way at all. It was definitely flavorful. It felt like it was brewed for more than enough time. But texturally, it wasn't viscous. You know, you can almost have a Pu'erh that's so dark that it's like drinking molasses. Not in the flavor, but in the texture.
Yeah, very thick, sweet. This steep, I'd say, is my favorite of the two. It's a lot of body, a lot of thickness and sweetness, and still a touch of that vanilla.
It definitely still has those characteristic Pu'erh traits that you're going to have taste from, right? So it still has that, how would you describe it? The aged aspect of it, which is going to be sort of woody and earthy and mineral-y, not necessarily gasoline-y, although I've definitely had, especially with raw Pu'erh, that taste, but
that's just like the taste of potency and pungentness, just like a pungent punch in the face.
That's a lot of P sounds, dude.
It is, yeah.
Cool. And look at how dark that is now. Oh my goodness.
So you can see third steeping, a lot of just darkness coming out of this tea. And how long would you steep your ripe Pu'erhs for, Zach?
It actually, the first steepings would usually be much shorter. Pretty much like as long as we're doing here, but once I started to notice the darkness leaving, I would just start steeping for longer, basically. That's how I do it.
Yeah, totally by feel. I mean, tea is a art, but
I definitely like the darker, like that earthy taste and feel, like the second brewing we just had. That is why I like ripes.
Right,
You know?
and that's sort of my experience is that's kind of the coffeeness of this tea, is that sort of like bold, wake you up flavor, right? So this isn't something that's going to be like really pleasant to drink right before bed, for instance. It's definitely, for me at least, I like Pu'erh in the morning. It's very energizing, and it's got a very strong flavor. So.
And I mean, if you go on the internet and you look up Pu'erh tea, all the top links are going to be about these celebrity women dieting. And so it's also a good diet tea, apparently. I have never used it for dieting, but a lot of people will drink it after meals. It's commonly paired with dim sum, actually, just because it is a highly fermented tea to clear up some of those fat deposits.
And, it just pairs well because you're getting such a strong, fatty meal, and then cutting that fat with something that's bold and not too sweet. It's great.
So how can people find out more about this tea?
Check out TeaDB.org, please. We have a lot of information up there. But you guys can also find this at Teavivre. They're a great company. They were nice enough to contribute this to our little show here, so we can't thank them enough for that. Teavivre.com, I believe.
Yep.
And I think that's a wrap for episode
16
of TeaDB.
All right.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next week.
Yep. Thank you.